Alright, so this is going to be the first video I'm making in a while. I'm back in Waterloo now, so I'm back in the university. And I'm going through a tough time, I guess, in my personal life. And because of that, it's got me thinking a lot about how to deal with suffering and why we suffer. And I was writing my thoughts, and I was having a bit of a tough time studying, so I thought I might as well put my words on camera and try and compel myself to think. So I'll just read a little bit of what I wrote. Any man can express emotion in winding phrases and artistic tapestries. It takes true genius to be concise. Speak the truth in the fewest words possible, for words that are excess are clouds to the light. So speak clearly. It is my prerogative to become someone worth being, to take this moment of suffering and face it bravely. Do not run, my son. Kings are made in the fray. Suffering that chases us becomes misery. Suffering that we chase becomes beauty. Be turned off not by the violence upon your heart, but stare it squarely, so that you may know the truth. The light will be blind. The light will be bright. Do not shut your eyes. See, one thing that I've learned about heartbreak and suffering and difficulty is that the more I run from it, the worse it gets. And there's this sort of redemptive power in the ability to face it squarely in the eyes. And over this, since I started making these videos, since my birthday in June, it's September now, end of September, one of the things I've noticed is I've had to change my relationship to fear and failure and success even, I guess. But one of the things is that when there's pain in my heart, or when I'm scared of something, instead of running from it, I've found that if I run towards it, it gets a lot less scary. And I think there's a lot of truth in saying that suffering that chases us becomes misery, and suffering that we chase becomes beauty. We all go through really hard times in our life. Times when we don't know what to do, and when we feel weak, and when we don't know if we can stand. And I'm kind of in one of those moments right now. And all that I really know is that even in a moment like this, I have the opportunity to choose. And that's crazy. That's really cool. That in a moment of suffering, we get to choose who we want to be. I think Abraham Lincoln said something like, any man can be a good man when he has no power. If you really want to test a man's character, give him power and see what he's like. Something like that. I butchered it. But the point is that in moments where your heart is broken and when you're going through a tough time, that's when you really have to decide who you want to be. And it's God. It is not easy. I wish it was. But it strengthens your heart and your resolve to know that when you suffer, you can make a choice. And the choice is not to get out of suffering necessarily, but it is to face your suffering. And in facing your suffering, you become braver. Right? Because life, and I read this somewhere, I heard this, that life doesn't get easier. You either just get braver or you keep running. And there's no point running, because if you run, you move away from the things you want to create and be in your life. So, I'm sure I'll be talking about suffering a lot in the coming days, weeks, as these videos are made. But one thing that I've learned is that I can't run. I can't run from it, because running from it makes it so much worse. I have to turn and face it in the eye and grip down and stare it. Because if I don't stare it in the eye, it infects my dreams and my day-to-day. And you know what? Here's another thing I learned. The only antidote to fear is telling the truth. Telling the truth as straightly and concisely as you can. Because that's what I wrote, right? I think I really am coming to appreciate and understand the redemptive power of the truth. When you tell the truth, you can't be touched because you are surrounded by the natural order of things, right? It's tough to describe, it's tough to articulate for me, but it's like when you tell the truth, you become surrounded. It's like you're surrounded in this light, this aura, and that aura is what was, what factually was. And when you're surrounded by that, no matter what happens, you can't be broken. And the hardest part is telling the truth to yourself. For me at least, it's telling myself the truth. But when I manage to do it, I crack open my heart and I become stronger, I think. Because telling the truth gives me protection from the chaos and the heartbreak. Because it says to me that even when everything is going south, I have myself. And if you have yourself, you can face anything. Because I was taught since I was very young in Hinduism is the idea that you come into this world alone, and no matter what you gain or have in this world, you will leave alone. So I think it's worth my time to try and figure myself out and get to like myself. And in times of heartbreaking pain and suffering, the only person really at the end of the day who can strengthen you is yourself. And why not? Because if you're not strengthening yourself, you're just going to suffer. And then you'll beg others for help. And if you're lucky, you'll be surrounded by beautiful, kind people like I am who are willing to provide it. But it's not about that. It's about being able to face it yourself. Because when you face it yourself, you honor your heart and you become strong. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to flip on my suffering and face it in the face. Face it eye to eye and wait for it to blink. It's good for today. Well, how do I turn this off?